Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. As you all can see, I have with me Major General Sudhakar ji, who today is going to take us through a very contentious neighborhood of India called Afghanistan. Afghanistan is known to be in the crux of battle or instability for the past about 150 odd years. And as a matter of fact, even before that, things haven't been very settled in that place. Either one part of the country was settled, one part wasn't, the other part was settled at one time and the other wasn't. It's said that nobody ever ruled onto Afghanistan. No foreigner has done that. And those are stories that have been brought about, which are all part of fiction, if I may put it that way. The flag of Indian rulers has been in Afghanistan multiple times, and the place was pretty stable during those times. The Britishers had a tough time controlling the country. The northwestern frontier areas and beyond that, they used to send their air forces to fight battles and to calm these tribals down. And post 9/11, we all know the story of Afghanistan and its downgrade into chaos, as we can see today. To understand what's happening today, we must also understand the previous history. How is this country come into being? What is the story behind it? The Durand Line between Pakistan, where we see a whole lot of action and tamasha today. Chinese interest in this region. And as the Pakistanis love to term it, India ka pair in Pakistan. Let's try and understand what the story is and how this thing goes. And the first thing that I think I would like to get into is, historically, what is the game in Afghanistan? It was part of the British Raj at one time and separated sometime in the early 1900s. What is the story in terms of its history, which has brought it to its point today? And of course, a little bit about the geography and what Afghanistan really connects to. How is it so strategically important, being even a landlocked nation today, sir?
Good afternoon, Aadi. Thank you once again for inviting me to your channel, and compliments to you for the kind of quality products you have been generating from your pastime passion, I would say. And it's been able to bring a lot of intelligentsia onto converging platform, I would say. A lot of people have started talking sense because the kind of value addition you are making and injecting into the environment are definitely very unparalleled. So hats off to you. Congratulations, and wish you all the very best in your venture.
Thank you, sir.
Adi, although we are meeting after a long gap, I have been getting lots of messages for those of very limited number of my students, so-called students. They have been asking me. I've taken a little sabbatical from the Twitter also, not very active in that. Trying to focus on preparation of chapters for my PhD submission. Also, I've taken off myself from the mainstream channel. I have discussed this very subject on Afghanistan in some of the mainstream channels, national as also international level channels. So after a long gap, and that was at the time when the Taliban had gone in, something close to 15th of August and around that time last year. So now we are almost 6-7 months down the line, and let's see what meaning does it convey to the contemporary times and the cerebral acumen of, I'm sure, whoever is watching this will get stimulated by some of the inputs that I'm going to share. Ladies and gentlemen, before we come on to the main subject, like Aadi has very rightly alluded, let's very quickly understand what Afghanistan is all about. In short, it is called as the graveyard of empires. It's very popularly known as the graveyard of empires because whoever has come here, any foreign power, has not lasted too long. They stayed for a very short time. Now, why is it so? This also, in a geopolitical term and some kind of a passing commentary, a lot of, I would say, journalists and editorials have come out with a phraseology of, they call it a strategic curse for Afghanistan, strategic gift for Pakistan, and strategic destruction for India. This is that geography that we are talking today. Ladies and gentlemen, so firstly, we come to the first aspect of Afghanistan, per se, the location and the borders that he has with the countries. First and foremost, to the west of Afghanistan and to southwest is the Iran with a border of 921 kilometers. Then, as we are moving in a clock ray direction, we have Turkmenistan with a border of 804 kilometers. Then we have Uzbekistan is 144 kilometers. Tajikistan has got a border of 1357 kilometers. And thereafter is China, this Wakhan corridor. It opens up with a very narrow, like a saucepan, like a tongue sticking out. Is 92 kilometers border. And from the border, 20 kilometers into China side is the first post where China has established at a place called Keketuluke, 20 kilometers from where the border lies between China and Afghanistan. Thereafter, presently with Pakistan occupied Kashmir, otherwise, rightfully, it is India's border with Afghanistan of a distance of 106 kilometers. And then Pakistan has got a border with Afghanistan, which is called a Durand Line, over a distance of 2,640 kilometers. Ladies and gentlemen, with this border, very quickly, I'll just give you important aspects for better understanding of the country. There are about 8 mountain ranges, main mountain ranges. Hindu Kush is the predominant one. And in fact, Hindu Kush ranges also gets further subdivided. It occupies. I was reading a couple of books. In most of these documents, it given that Hindu Kush occupies something close to 75% of the total landmass of Afghanistan. This is the kind of predominance of this geographic feature. You have Pamir, you have Tian Shan Mountains, you have Karakoram, you have Suleiman Mountains, and you have Hindu Kush Northeast, Central Highlands, and the Arid Desert. Ladies and gentlemen, there are 49 rivers, but the main rivers are Kabul River flowing over a distance of 700 kilometers, Helmand River 1100 kilometers. Amu Darya is very famous because that is where this is the line and alignment which the Russians had taken way back during the British Empire to come in closer to Indian borders. 2,540 kilometers long, and Hari River is 1100 kilometers. Rainfall is scarce. Agriculture or cultivation, ladies and gentlemen, some of the documents will always give you a very inflated kind of a percentage of land which is arable, which can be cultivated. They gives a figure of 20% of the total land masses. Actually, as per my research, I don't think I'm wrong, but if I'm wrong, I'm prepared to correct myself. As per my research, it's coming to around 12% of the total land mass of Afghanistan is arable land. And the climate is, the winter is very, very severe, very harsh winter. With that, we go into the tribes, ladies and gentlemen. There are many, as per the constitution of Afghanistan, they take into account 14 tribes. But there are many, many unaccounted for tribes which are existing on the ground. Out of these 14 tribes, ladies and gentlemen, Pashtun has a percentage of approximately 48 to 50% of the total population. Tajikis, they are 25%. Hazaras are towards the Iran border, they are 9%. I'm giving all this so that you will be able to put two and two together and answer many questions which some of the students, my students, they have been asking me. So if you put two and two, you will be able to find an answer. Hazaras are actually Shias. They are towards Iran border. 9%. Uzbeks are 9%. Nuristanis are Nuristani, Aymag, Turkmen, Baloch. They are 10 to 13%. And there are minor tribes also who are called Jaji, Safi, Wardags, Shinwari, etc., etc. Interestingly, you must keep in mind that this Pashtun tribe also has got many, many sub-tribes. The major ones are Giljali and Durrani. Just keep this in the back of your mind. The religion, as you know, they are Shia and Sunni, and majority are basically Shias in the Sunnis. And before Islam came in 7th century, the religious practices were centering around Zoroastrianism, Surya worship, that is a sun god worship, paganism, Hinduism, and Buddhism. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to take you to the the border with the Pakistan. This, they call it as the Durand Line, and the creation of Durand Line has got a history how it was made. Just keep in mind, this is a major fault line of Pakistan because the Pashtuns, they get divided onto either side of the Durand Line. Therefore, whether it is the present Taliban or the elected government prior to that in Afghanistan or the Taliban in Pakistan itself, none of them accept this division, artificially divided line. So this you got to keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen. You will have a better understanding. Therefore, there is a demand for Pashtunstan. Pashtunstan essentially comes right up to Peshawar and goes across the flow, the alignment of Indus River cutting across the western Pakistan. And it's a huge chunk of land. And Pakistan, if Pashtunstan is created, then the size of Pakistan gets further reduced and diminished. So keep this in the back of your mind, ladies and gentlemen. And on Durand Line, there were massive kind of reportage in last about 8-9 months, wherein Pakistan had undertaken a venture of fencing it. They managed to fence this. Total length of the border is 2,640 kilometers. There was also news that the Taliban has disallowed, they have dismantled the fencing portion of quite a good length. But the point to keep in mind is that in good old days, this Durand Line had established crossing points at 235 of them, 235 crossing points. But after the fence has been built by Pakistan, the number of crossing places which are designated crossing places kept under surveillance, as also dominated by the security personnel, are 16, where the records are maintained for to and fro movement of trade, commerce, as also personnel. So this is important. And also, I must tell you, the crossing points, these are important issues as far as Afghanistan is concerned, ladies and gentlemen. Along the Tajik border, you have Sher Khan Bandar. There is a crossing place. There are many, but this is an important one. Turkmenistan border has got Tangundi, and Uzbekistan has got a crossing place, a major crossing place, Hairatan. These are the important crossing places. Also, along the Iran border, there is a crossing place called Islam Kala crossing point. Why am I sharing this crossing point, ladies and gentlemen, is that in worst of times, when Afghanistan is going through a very, very challenging phase now, there are no money. But these are the crossing points which fetch them a lot of money for cross-border trade, commercial activities, and importantly, the narco-terrorism passes through these points. Narco-terrorism, as you know, source of income are from different layers and levels of the couriers, the midmen, the smugglers, the transporters, the lab person who's processing it, and the pluckers, those who go and pluck the poppies and dry them and skin it out. So these are different sources of income. So you got to keep that in mind. Also keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, before I get back to Aadi, in case he has anything to add, the physiography, there are 421 districts in Afghanistan, and there are 34 provinces. Capital, as you all know, is Kabul. It is along the axis which is joining Peshawar to Kabul. This is what, in fact, the Chinese are looking at. The CPEC, which Chinese have undertaken, although it has slowed down considerably during the COVID, as also because of different theatrics that China is undertaking in past 2 years. Their eyes are on to extend one of the arms of the CPEC towards Afghanistan, joining Peshawar towards Kabul, and thereafter taking it off towards Iran and Middle East. Plus also connecting further north towards the Central Asian Republic. So keep that in mind. Also, it is going to connect one of the copper mines which China has signed in the year 2008. They have gone in for this in the 2008. It's known as Aadi copper mine, which has got the largest copper deposit of high-grade quality of copper in the world. As it is, the copper prices are going up. So this is as far as the minerals and this thing is concerned. Another important issue, ladies and gentlemen, got to keep in mind is that there are about 40 to 50 languages in this country. But importantly, there are two languages. Language is a thing which actually binds a nation, which makes the nation tick. So Dari language, 77% people speak, and Pashto language is spoken by about 48%. And during the worst of times when Afghanistan was being invaded by Taliban, I had carried out a study. I thought, let me also share this statistical couple of two, three of them only. 43% of Afghan GDP was foreign aid. 75% of government expenditure at that point in time. Now they're virtually they're on the knees. They have nothing. 75% of government expenditure at that point in time was foreign aid. 4 million people had been displaced. It is much more than 4 million. As per my rough calculation, it is touching something close to 9 million. Incidentally, total population of Afghanistan as on today is 39 million. It's around 4 crores, or maybe a little plus minus this side, that side. Almost close to 4 million officially declared by the UN agencies. 4 million people are displaced. 47.3% of total population at that point in time of Afghanistan was below the poverty line. But when I was going through the latest topics, latest articles yesterday and today, I was alarmed to see that it is as high as almost 92 to 94% of total population who have fallen below the poverty line. They don't have a square meal a day. That is the kind of situation. They don't have medicine, no drinking water, no food, no shelter. That is the kind of humanitarian crisis. And I don't think anywhere in the world, except for Yemen is getting out of hand, where the humanitarian crisis is comparable or maybe worse than this. And importantly, you got to keep in mind that the strategic importance of Afghanistan is essentially it is at the crossroads of civilization, gateway to Central Asia, Balkan, and Europe, and it is the same old Silk Road which had been converted and identified as a buffer state during the Great Game, way back in the beginning of 19th century, end of 19th century and beginning of 20th century. With that, I'll throw it back to Aadi if you have anything to add before we go across the other issues and carry them forward, please. Any views, any points from?
I am glad you specified the great game of the 19th century and the 20th century, because there has been a game which is being played in Afghanistan since the 1970s as well. Because there are this is a game which has lasted more than 60 years now. So it's been on late 60s onwards. The bit of a focus towards that region. 70s it built up, and finally in 79 the Russians came in and pretty much bludgeoned the place into what it is today. Before that, it was a pretty much a open society. Things were a little better, and Kabul used to be one of the party places of South and Central Asia. So it was placed in the middle of Beirut, Baghdad, and all these places used to be very, very heavy liberal party spots of the middle 20th century, just around the end of the Second World War, sort of a thing. So my main question is, the Great Game, of course, is a historical aspect where the Britishers tried to, control this entire area by, hook or crook and force and this and that. That thing resulted in a whole different set of problems for that entire region, and they could not kind of settle it out till the time they were controlling the place, post which Afghanistan came on their own, developed to a certain extent, and then again they went into chaos. What one sees is that is this a cycle that the Afghanistan has actually picked up, to be in one great game, give a pause, and then get into another one? And how long do you think this cycle will kind of last?
Excellent, Adi. You come out with such beautiful questions, So one has to really rack his brain to respond to that. But so to answer your question, let me very briefly, for the better understanding of the audience, very briefly touch upon an important aspect. That way back in 500 BCE, the Achaemenid Empire was existing. From 3000 to 2000 BCE, you had urbanized culture, Indus Valley civilization was existing. Then, interestingly, which is very close to our heart, being Indians, 1500 to 535 BCE was the Gandhara kingdom. The Gandhara kingdom was from 1500 to 535 BCE. Thereafter came is 330 BC, wherein the Alexander the Great, he invaded and he came in. after the fall of the Achaemenid Empire. And in between, a lot of people have been asking me the question of the influence of Raja Ranjit Singh. The derivation has been actually getting lopsided here and there, but as per my research, ladies and gentlemen, do correct me if I am wrong. It says from 13th 11 1780 till 27 June 1839. It's a long spell of almost about 59 years, wherein the Afghanistan enjoyed the equality, some kind of a civilized rules-based order which we talk of under the governance of Raja Ranjit Singh. So that is the beauty or the hallmark of the Indianness which was there in Afghanistan at that point in time. Also, the other name of Afghanistan, is called as Khorasan province. So since then, there are different kinds of, you have the Kushans, you have Kabul Shahi, you have lots of tribes who have come in and actually ruled this particular country from time to time. One important issue which I want to share with you, ladies and gentlemen, is about the tribes who came in. Yes, I found the details. They are here. You had the Greeks, you had the Kushans, you had the Arabs. For 200 years, you have Hindus, that is the Shahis, you had the Muhammad of Ghazni, you had the Mongols controlling it from in the year 1221 when the Genghis Khan, he invaded. Babur was the first Mughal emperor, followed by Aurangzeb, and thereafter the constant tribal revolt has taken place from time to time. Essentially, if you carry out an analysis, one comes to a conclusion because these people are tribal people. The tribal people do not like any foreign rule. The best way to control the tribal people, we may be laughing at Aurangzeb or the Mughals. Do you know, if you carry out an analysis of the history, the best governance was during the Mughals. And how did they rule these tribals was by a loose confederation. They used to give lots of freedom and initiative to operate, pay them off. They used to buy them virtually with a lot of wealth and money. So that is how it went about. Also, some questions had come to me. So, what do you mean by this great game? It is being used in Southeast Asia. You use that. You use for Central Asia. Central Asia, I used from the context of new great game, wherein all other powers are trying their best to throw out USA from Central Asian Republic. What is this great game? Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about a great game which essentially depicts the political and diplomatic confrontation way back in 19th century and the end of 19th century and beginning of 20th century between British and Russian Empire. Also keep in mind that Russia at that point in time had proposed Afghanistan as a neutral zone. What happened thereafter is also very interesting. The great game had to end in a draw. Why? The Russians had to resign from the conflict after her defeat by Japan way back in 1907 in the northeastern region. And England and Russia, they agreed to let neutrality of Afghanistan and keep it as a buffer zone between their Asian territories. So this is important, ladies and gentlemen. Just keep in mind. Also, you have to keep in mind another aspect to answer the question of Aadi, which he had asked, is this going to go on like this? Aren't they destined for some kind of stability? Well, to me, it appears that perhaps this is the way of life. This is how Afghanistan is going to lead its own life. Unless some sensible leadership is shown by one of the countries, which India was playing a very important role. After the fall of Taliban way back in 2001, when India went in, we have invested about $3 billion in host of issues in schools, colleges, the sports fields, made their parliament, constructed dams, provision of drinking water, getting the women together on different schemes, training them, improving the skill development in the country. And mind you, most of us do not talk about it. I don't know, very surprisingly. There are 32 lakhs, if I'm not wrong, 3.2 million Pashtuns who are in India. 32 lakhs ever since the creation of Afghanistan. They have in a way, they have actually got internalized, assimilated our Hinduism culture or something. They are part of the nation today. And also, you got to keep in mind other aspects of because of the geography, location of Pakistan, we have to find a detour, Chabahar port and Zarang and Dalim, that road access 150 or 90 odd kilometers, which connects from Chabahar port across Iran right up to the Afghanistan border. So, a host of other issues. We have also got a north-south multimodal transportation axis, which is being developed with 13 countries participating, but essentially it is India, Iran, and Russia. Otherwise, there are small countries of Central Asian Republic. Balkan states are also there, 13 odd countries. Total distance of this road access is 7,200 kilometers starting from Chabahar port, which is connecting the Middle East, connecting the Central Asian Republic, part of the Russia, thereafter going up to the borders of the Europe. This is a multimodal kind of thing. Unfortunately, because of COVID pandemic and the challenges which have come about post 15th August 2021, the things have taken a backseat, but still government of India is trying its best. Now, next question, which is also coming side by side, I'll keep responding to the questions. Why is it called as a graveyard of empires? Before that, let me also quickly tell you that because of its geographic, geostrategic location, the foreign governments, like I have already alluded to, have long used the people of Afghanistan as tools for their own interest. And why is it difficult to conquer? As per me, ladies and gentlemen, it's a landlocked country. And the only way to get into Afghanistan is through the neighboring countries or by air. And the biggest obstacle I have also alluded to is the high peaks of Hindu Kush mountain ranges, which covers about 75% of the total area of Afghanistan. Somebody also has asked a question about the Anglo-Afghan war. As per him, the Afghanistan, Britishers had won the second Anglo-Afghan war. Ladies and gentlemen, there are three Anglo-Afghan wars as per my research. One is 1839 to 1842, which the Britishers were given a bloody nose by the Afghan tribals. And it was essentially aimed to oust the ruler. And ruler was that time Dost Muhammad, and replace him with Shah Shamir. Somehow it led to a kind of a insurrection broke out, a resistance movement broke out. A lot of people died in there. It compelled the British government to flee Kabul. Second one was 1878 to 1880. During this period, it was a conspiracy, I would say, as per my understanding. And this conspiracy, basically, they wanted to impose and legislate a line between Pakistan and Afghanistan. They wanted to, firstly, Afghanistan as a buffer state, also have a dividing line. That line was Durand Line. Basically, the whole exercise was aimed at establishing and legislating or promulgating the very concept of Durand Line, which was not appreciated or accepted by the multiple stakeholders at that point in time. The third one, this you may be calling as a success. Well, it was basically a leadership was planted there, appointed, so that this particular thing could be easily passed by the act of legislation. The third one is 1919. We all know immediately after the First World War, the Anglo-Afghan War. This is a story. If you have time, ladies and gentlemen, Google it. You will find lots of material to read this. They had only one survivor in this war, 1919 battle. One survivor. It is a surgeon who was put on the back of a mule and sent back. The remaining British soldiers, which were numbering more than 10,000, they all passed away. British Indian Army soldiers and British Army soldiers. Nobody survived during this conflict. So do correct me. These are the inputs which I thought I'll share with you, ladies and gentlemen. The Great Britain, from its base in India, was actually seeking to extend its control over the neighboring Afghanistan to oppose Russian influence. This I am highlighting or underscoring this point in order to respond to one of the questions raised by a student, as also to reply to Mr. Aadi, who said, will this go on? I personally feel the concept which India has evolved and adopted, our Ministry of External Affairs, It should be of the people, by the people, and for the people of Afghanistan. It should be led by the Afghanis. Only then the Afghanistan can prosper. But history says that neither the foreign rulers nor their own rulers elected by those same people can be trusted. So let's wait and watch. Let's see how things actually go about, and thereafter I'll come on to the current situations. And also, somebody has given you a SMS to cover the abrupt ending of the campaign by the American. This came about before we started discussing, Adi, you and me, sometime around 2:55 or so. Well, I have some data in the back of my mind. I'll share that. Also, I would like to interestingly cover that China is not sitting tight. They are actually having a serious trouble. Afghanistan is not hunky-dory and a kind of a gift which has come their way on a platter. There are lots of challenges also. Particularly, there is an assassination squad of China which had infiltrated into Afghanistan. Basically, it was led by the Uyghur Muslims. Their target was to kill the engineers and the mine workers in the Aina mines 40 kilometers away from Kabul and make it dysfunctional, which, as per the contract, was supposed to have started in 2008. And unfortunately, the latest is that this mine is lying absolutely unused and no excavation is taking place, no digging is taking place. There's a group of people, a diplomatic team which had come from China to get these people released sometime on 10th December. The assassination squad was arrested on 10th December 2020 by Afghan police. Then this diplomatic team had gone there way back in 2021, and the mines, the copper rates in the world have gone up from $6,500 to $9,300 per ton. So that is the kind of value and the money which China is losing as of now. But before I go ahead with the rest of the issues, back to you, Adi, if you have anything to add, please.
So as a matter of fact, it's interesting that you bring about this copper mine thing, because, one of the things that we see currently happening in the border regions of Afghanistan and Pakistan is the big strike that has taken place in Balochistan. Of course, the TTP, which is rising up. And if you read the statement that is coming out of those guys, they are very clear on the fact that we will not allow the Chinese. And they've actually indirectly sent a message to the Chinese saying that please stay away from here because it will not be good for your existence within this region. That is, it supports what you're trying to say, that the mine work, a lot of rumors came out that the mines have started up and stuff like that. But the Chinese are pretty wary, in spite of all the promises that the Pakistanis have been able to actually give the Chinese. They're still wary in coming inside. One of the things that I want to ask you, sir, Afghanistan, there are a couple of countries in this region, leaving alone a lot of the chaos which is happening in Africa in terms of military coups in Mali and Burkina Faso and so on and so forth. Afghanistan and Myanmar are two countries that we see today which people are concerned about, but not really wanting to touch it because they know it's a quagmire of this thing. Do you see any movement from the international community coming towards Afghanistan for any sort of development? We saw them flying to Norway, didn't really work out anything. Pakistan had a conference, didn't really work out anything. Small aid coming here and there. We've sent some saman from Iran, although a whole new geopolitical game is starting up. But do you see any structured response from the international community coming towards Afghanistan in the near future for any sort of engagement? Not that I'm very pro-Taliban, but it's just a question.
Well, very, very interesting question, Adi. You also know the answer. It's not an easy yes, because first and foremost thing is to allow or give recognition to a terrorist organization governing a nation state is going to set a wrong precedence, as per my understanding, ladies and gentlemen. And second point, yes, Oslo is known for bringing about peace to very, very strife-torn nation states in the past. A lot of people who are deep into track two kind of diplomacy, a lot of actions are going on to bring about some change in the psyche and the thought process and the approach to address this challenge before the global order. by and by, in past 6 to 8 months' time, you see the global focus has shifted to Indo-Pacific. And within Indo-Pacific, there are 5 flashpoints which have emerged: the East China, the South China, then we have the Indo-Tibet border. You also have Taiwan, which has actually come out loud and clearly. One front is that which is thrown up is the internal disorder of China, which is also, is a big challenge. The existence of China is going to soon, come out loudly before all of us. So all the new, plus the Ukraine crisis. So the global focus having shifted, and there is lack of attention on Afghanistan today. And the Taliban's, without having towed the line, you see the current situation. If I explain, if you give me the chance to, share some inputs, important inputs, it will give you a perspective how things are running out of hand. How can the global order, ladies and gentlemen, I am asking this pointed question to each and every one of you. How can the global order ever accept or outfit or an entity to govern a nation state? A nation state which is supposed to be a member of the United Nations. Okay, and without the rules-based international order, without human rights. Let me just quote few examples. The current situation is going to respond to this particular question in a significant manner. What is happening in Afghanistan as on today, except for the humanitarian assistance, that also is a tall order. You all know that 50,000 metric tons of weight and medicine, which was lying loaded in trucks for nearly months from India, finally it saw the light of the day after 3-4 months of negotiation. Humanitarian assistance to Afghanistan. Pakistan did not allow us. What kind of country is this Pakistan? So, such like examples. It is characterized by insecurity. COVID-19 is playing havoc, corruption. Then you have government order, over-centralization is taking place because of Taliban. You have Sharia law. You all know the extremities of the Sharia law, ladies and gentlemen. There is a declining revenue. Early 2022, 55% of Afghanistan started facing, right from January itself, food insecurity, including 9 million people. Earlier I had said 4 million displaced. There are 9 million people at emergency level of survival. It is, they call the United Nations machinery, they have declared it as a last step before the famine conditions. Before Afghanistan is declared as a famine-stricken state. It is the last step. In maybe another 15-20 days, the whole nation is going to be declared so critical. It's an ongoing drought is rampant there. Narco-terrorism has found place. You name a country anywhere in the world, 85% of narco-terrorism is supplied from this particular Golden Crescent. Keep that in mind. Also, you have threats to women. This is the critical issue. Threats to women and the HR crisis actually, ruling the roost. The women's right advances, the media freedom has been rolled back. So these are the issues. Many secondary schools for girls, they have remained closed by the end of the year, that is 2021. Women largely are prohibited from working in jobs outside teaching and healthcare. They are only there, they have been allowed in a selective manner only for teaching and healthcare, not anything outside these two avenues. Also keep in mind that Taliban summarily have executed many former members of Afghanistan government security forces. These executions have already taken place. We are receiving the video clips and the YouTube channels clips quite often in the recent past. There has been a freeze on Afghan's currency reserve. The loss of foreign aid has accelerated an economic collapse and leaving millions of Afghanis at risk of famine, ladies and gentlemen. But also keep in mind a few of the important issues. These are the terrorist groups, how they are playing a menace there. Taking advantage of the situation, talk about Taliban, talk about the ISIS Khorasan, talk about there is an Afghanistan branch of ISIS Khorasan, these groups. You see, number of civilians have been killed and they have injured because of different kinds of operations conducted by the terrorists. Okay, the IS Khorasan province, they have attacked numerous civilian facilities, including schools, mosques. Most of them members of Hazara community. Hazaras are the Shias along the Iran border, mind you. 9% of the total population are Hazaras. ISKP attacks have confirmed after the Taliban takeover, and they continue to operate with total impunity without any checks or roko and toko by anybody. The new government has announced a steady stream of policies and regulations, which I have already covered, which essentially are rolling back the women's rights. There have been restrictions on media. There have been the flight of many journalists who want to go abroad, also abroad journalists wanting to come into Afghanistan. They have been restricted. 70% of Afghan media, they have been closed. Targeted killings are taking place by Taliban, ISIS, Khorasan, and Afghan branch of ISIS. This is the current situation, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to give you answers to a lot of your questions, if I may actually respond in that manner. Also, let me share with you one very, very important thing. Somebody was asking me just prior to the cause of Afghanistan being invaded by Russians. I had mentioned about a name called Taraki. I did not remember the full name. You see, Afghanistan, to the best of my knowledge, ladies and gentlemen, just I'll request Aadi once I throw back the question to him if he can add on. You see, this was a monarchy which was existing earlier. This monarchy, they started developing the concept of constitutional monarchy sometime in 71 and
71.
71. So the constitutional monarchy essentially wanted to have two houses. They wanted to give power to the people. Their basic aim was actually, yes, if I remember correctly, Taraki was the name of the minister, Nur Mohammad Taraki, who was the president. He was pro-communist leader. In a way, he was kind of a puppet leader who had been appointed by the Russians. So people did not, firstly, the constitutional monarchy was not liked by the people. He had promised them, he had assured them that miracles will happen. A lot of things, new things, the modern Afghanistan would be created. But people got disillusioned. Within the people itself, there was a resistance movement. And finally, since they did not like the communist rule, ruled by a pro-communist guy, so they assassinated him, I think in 1979, if I'm not wrong. That was the turning point. Till then, the Russians or the Soviet Union, they used to be there in Afghanistan in an advisory role. The moment this assassination took place, they found that all over the country in Afghanistan, the warlords and the tribal leaders and everyone, they went against, there was a rampage all over the country. That is the time the Afghanistan came in to bring in some kind of law and order. Let me tell you that their rule of 1979 to 1989, until they were pushed out of Afghanistan with the help of Pakistan. Pakistan had got mujahid from all over the world. The material, the resources, the money was provided by America just to avenge their defeat in Vietnam. They wanted to give it back to the Russian in the same coin, and they succeeded in pushing out these guys. Who were the mujahids? Mujahids were the people from all over the world. Same mujahids who used to be supported by porters and the logistic supply chain, they turned out to be the Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is a byproduct of Mujahid. And soon thereafter, in 91, 92, when the insurgency started germinating in J&K towards our side, immediately after the 71 liberation of Bangladesh, it did not go down too well. When the East Pakistan was converted into Bangladesh, it didn't go down well. They said ki Sam Dam Dand Ved, 1,000 cuts will bleed India to death. They started launching K1 and K2 operation. K1 was for Kashmir, K2 was for Punjab. You know what happened in Punjab. It is the people of Punjab who have managed to defeat the very devious design of Pakistan very successfully. And also, to large an extent, we have been able to succeed with the abrogation of Article 370. I think the days are not very far when the normalcy will come back to Kashmir Valley very soon, and they will start having an identity of an Indian integral part, identity and the sense of feeling an intrinsic part of the nation being as India. So these are my take. And ladies and gentlemen, to take you further, it was in 1994 when the Taliban was actually took birth in Pakistan. It was led by a Major General. You remember his name? What's his name?
Supported by Hamid Gul, sir. The other guy, I forget the name now.
There was a Major General, if I remember, Major General Nasrullah Babar in
Nasrullah Babar.
1990.
Ah,
Yeah,
correct,
he's
correct.
the one who actually created the Taliban. And soon after that, from 96 to 2001, Taliban applied the Sharia law. You know what all happened. And the US invaded, and there was an alliance of multiple stakeholders. India also happened to be part of the alliance, Northern Alliance, to fight back the Taliban. And thereafter, some kind of a rules-based governance started coming about and lasted for 20 odd years until the Americans went out of Afghanistan in a, I would say, in an unexpected manner. Why they went back is, to answer this question, the gentleman who's asked this question is from UK. I'll read out his name. There are many reasons, ladies and gentlemen. Many factors. But one of the factor is the internal factor of US. This is purely out of my reading, and again, do correct me since you are sitting abroad. You will be listening to this particular clip very soon. My study has revealed the following details. First and foremost is the 3,807 US troops who served in Afghanistan from 2001 to 2021. Now, they served multiple tours of duty in Afghanistan, ladies and gentlemen. US lost 2,448 troops. The figures keep varying. Different documents give different figures. These are my figures. They may be up and down. Kindly bear me out. 20,722 US soldiers got injured. More than 200,000 US soldiers or the troops, they are currently suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. It is called as, in US parlance, called as the hallmark injury. And the current suicide rate out of these ex-servicemen or these soldiers is highest in United States in 26 years. Over 1,000 Afghan veterans, they commit suicide annually. 100,000 attempted. Most are repeated cases caused by trauma and guilt. Because most of them, like what happened in Vietnam, if you have, ladies and gentlemen, read a book called Crisis in Command, most of them, when you're falling back from Vietnam, they kept asking the political leadership, what was the aim of bringing army to Vietnam? Those similar questions have got unanswered. Trauma and guilt. 18% of these veterans are unemployed. 25% of those who secured some kind of employment, they earned less than $21,840 per annum. Incidentally, US average poverty threshold for a family of four is $20,614 per annum. 154,000 veterans out of 800,000 are homeless today. 22% of PTSD veterans, they are registered substance use disorders. Then they have come about with the coining of the terminology forward edge of battle area. These are the internal dynamics which has driven US to pull back the way they pulled back. REBA is rear edge of battle area. So either of these two, they have kept Afghanistan as a FEBA. FEBA has got some list of actions which Aadi will make some value addition. Also, somebody had asked in conjunction with this question with regard to this mine, copper mine that we alluded to a little while back. In 2008, the Metallurgical Corporation of China plus the Jiangxi Copper of China, they had at Ainak copper mine, this is worth about 2.9 billion. Contract was signed between the Afghanistan government at that point in time and the China company. 5.5 million metric tons of high quality copper ore is available here as per the and the value of the minerals available in Afghanistan, ladies and gentlemen, officially the figure says 1 trillion equivalent to. China has carried out the assessment. But actually, if you carry out a deep study of multiple documents and data is available, they will take you to a figure which is close to 3 trillion worth of minerals worth of $3 trillion. This is what China is eyeing for. And mind you, there is a place called Ashgabat in Turkmenistan. It holds 33% of world's proven natural gas reserves in Dolatabad and Galaxy gas fields. And this 33% of world's proven natural gas reserve, this is what China is eyeing for. That is why they want to branch out the CPEC from Peshawar towards Kabul and thereafter to this place. So that what they are actually thinking of developing a pipeline across cross country, they will be having a well built road connectivity, and alongside you will have a pipeline. It will be easy to maintain and also control and regulate. So these are the few issues which you guys have been asking me questions off and on. I thought, let me take the opportunity and share this answer and respond to you adequately. Back to you, Aadi, if you have anything to add, please.
As a matter of fact, sir, India's role has much been debated, in especially within this region, in the international world community, and as well as in India as well. What happened was we were kept out of the discussion in the first few months or few critical days of the Afghanistan decision. And then later on, the world kind of came to realize that if there is one country who can sincerely do something in Afghanistan, that would be India. And India has been allowed to kind of, I won't use the word allowed, but India has been given the freedom to really take its own steps. And we don't hear any comments coming about India's donations of food or medicine or anything like that, because previously it would have been termed as interference. Today it is pretty much open, and India has always done that. So there is something we must look into history. One of the things that we, to close this discussion, sir, what should India now do forward? Because there's a whole new geopolitical game which is opening up. Pakistanis tried to control Afghanistan by controlling the Axis. India has opened up another route through Iran, although dangerous in terms of USA is concerned, but still there is something happening. What should India do further, short of recognition of this so-called government in Afghanistan?
Adi, a very relevant question, which should actually, stimulate or trigger thoughts in our mind. Every Indian must think the same way. As per me, as per my studies, I personally feel that we should not be fence sitters. Time has come wherein India has to play a leadership role in everything that is happening in the world. When I say leadership role, it does not mean or imply that we should jump to the fray and be there with boots on ground. Boots on ground should be the no option as far as Afghanistan is concerned. We don't want to be party to the graveyard of empire ever. In our experience as also wisdom. Having said that, when I talk about the leadership role, by and by, with the passage of time, in last 6 months, see, India has taken a U-turn in its approach to Afghanistan. Its leadership, it is the NSA had already invited, the NSAs of important countries have come and paid visit to the NSA of India. There has been a conference, and the leadership in the respective verticals, the top leadership, the deputies went to Pakistan, whereas the top leadership in the respective countries, the verticals, they came to India. This itself is a paradigm shift in the approach. Wherever Pakistan is playing a role, people have lost actually faith in this country. Pakistan as a nation state has lost its credibility. So if something worthwhile has to happen, it has to be done at the behest or with the leadership of India. India also has to protect its national interest. Our national interest will be best protected by taking care of not only Afghanistan, there are other pockets also. One is Afghanistan, the second one is Bangladesh, the third one is Myanmar, to the best of my understanding. Onto either flanks of India today, Afghanistan and Bangladesh have turned into huge epicenters of radicalization, the fountainheads of radicalization. Whether terrorist attack will take place or not in foreseeable future, it is a matter of, it can take place, it may also not take place. But what is dangerous is the radicalization manifesting in form of different norms and practices. For example, this hijab issue which has taken place in Kerala, it is definitely triggered by one of these nefarious groups. ISIS Khorasan, today morning only I had given this particular input to somebody, some city channel, somebody Vaishali dialogue, they wanted my view on this. So today morning only I gave out this input on their concept. Why is it happening the way it is happening in Kerala? So my reply to them, if you allow me, I'll just read out there 2 lines only, Adi, if you don't mind, Sharon. They had, as per their analysis, they had given out blah, blah, blah. So I had told them the larger picture obscuring the views or understanding of the public is that Osama bin Laden's call for jihad in India on behalf of Al Qaeda way back in 1996 and several times thereafter, followed by Dash's issue of its map of global domination in 2014, ladies and gentlemen, including India as part of its Wilawat Khorasan, has begun to manifest in slow fire radicalization of the society. Ladies and gentlemen, the ISIS Khorasan is there in Bangladesh. The Myanmar situation has been triggered for a extended military junta by nobody other than China. China is trying out similar kind of military juntas or military coups in the African continent. Many countries in Africa are facing similar kind of situation. So, to bring about normalcy and rules-based international order, India has to keep its eyes and ears open, play a central role in balancing out, and firstly, avoid a conflict, avoid war. At this juncture, COVID pandemic having taken a toll on the economy and the livelihood of people of the globe, the entire world, the world cannot think of going in for war against anybody. We have to fight and continue to persist for only one thing, that is peace and development. With regard to this Taliban regime, well, there are no quick answers. They are already there. If the global order is not going to recognize them, the day is not far. They, on their own, they will start. Actually, there are 3 things which may take place. They will fight. The fighting capability is gone. They will they will fly away. Okay, these are the management dragons, and they will frighten. They will be frightened. So either of these two, they have lost the ability to fight back. Whatever is happening because of the ISIS Khorasan's deep involvement in all the activities. Haqqanis, Al Qaeda, ISIS Khorasan, Taliban, on the face of it, they may appear to be different groups, but they are networked behind a screen or behind a facade. Keep that in mind. So, therefore, India has to play a very calibrated role, but leadership role in bringing about normalcy by bringing in normalcy in Afghan-Pakistan corridor will lead to normalcy in J&K Valley, will lead to normalcy in our internal law and order situation in the entire country. That's my take. Thank you very much, Aadi, for having given this opportunity. I hope I have been able to answer this question. You people are wise enough. You may like to carry out value addition. I must welcome. I welcome each and every suggestion that you are giving. Even the criticisms are also welcome for my own learning and growth. Thank you so much, Aadi. Back to you, please.
Thank you, sir. I think you brought out the impact of stability in Afghanistan pretty clearly, because we can also see the impact of instability in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, the use of American left out weapons in this big Baluchistan attack that has taken place, where the Pakistanis are trying to, even now, as we speak, trying to cover up the entire issue, because obviously the damage is pretty hard. This thing will create instability in the entire region. It may just become the terrorist exporting factory of the world. And one can also see very clearly that the amount of drugs that has been recovered in the past, I would say, time since August has been massive. It's something that we must understand, because the world has cut Afghanistan off its financial resources. And I'm not trying to say that we must give it back, but they are kind of fending for themselves, which is basically drugs and weapons and export of, if I may use the word very loosely, unbranded terrorists. They can fit under any particular umbrella of operations or anything like that. And that creates issues, because at the moment, the Taliban is away from India's borders. because they've got their own stuff happening within their country, but it's not far long enough where these kind of elements.
Before you conclude, only one suggestion. Before you conclude, since you are heading for concluding remarks, the parting shot from my side would be, what is it that the global order should look for in case of Afghanistan? This is my understanding. The global order should look for having a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. We must conduct election. If the terrorists want to govern the country, let them get elected by the people. The best form of governance is the democracy. That is what our objective and aim of the global order, as far as my understanding goes. And I would recommend that, think it over. There may be plus points in what I am sharing with you, may not have, but this is a takeaway from my side to you and your channel, please. Back to you, please.
No, absolutely, sir. There has to be a solution which is found, because what we are seeing today in this world is that whichever doesn't affect the general world order, things are just left to be. Africa as a continent, and various different countries within that region have been at war for, I don't know, I mean, decades now, and they've just been left to rot. One of the things that we don't realize, that these kind of things are going to come back and hit us. May not be 5 years from now, maybe 10 years from now, maybe 50 years from now, but the impact will be there. The impact of a war in Syria is being felt all around the world, with, kabooms happening in every country of the world. There is, it's going to create trouble for the region. As far as the resources are concerned in Afghanistan, well, everybody is eyeing them. Fair enough. A lot of people debate them. Fair enough. Everybody has a right to their own perspective. That's fine. But having said that, it's not about draining the country dry. It's about making sure that the people are able to survive on whatever they've got within the place, with cleaner support from the international community, and a push towards self-insurrection, and starting up their own country. Because at the end of it, aid is not the solution. You'll end up with another Pakistan who's going to go beg around the place every time for some money, and that's not what the world needs right now. So I think self-sustained, self-contained Afghanistan would be a better option. I'd like to differ from you when you say elections, sir, because one of the things that in my little research, I've realized, I'm sure my research is much smaller, much lesser than yours, that the Afghan people probably may not understand the concept of free and fair election, because of the kind of weapons that exist in that country. Is going to be very, very difficult. Having said that, whatever form of structured government that they come up with, they have a taste of democracy. There's no question about it. But whatever they do come up with, they need to be given an opportunity for themselves to kind of evolve, which we don't see happening right now. There's no evolution of any sort in the past 6 months. Time will tell how this story will go forward. Till that time, sir, thank you so much for taking us through the history, geography, civics, and economics of Afghanistan. It's a difficult decision for India, and India seems to be surrounded with these difficult decisions. Afghanistan on its western front, Pakistan soon becoming an Afghanistan again on the western front. You've got Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar, Sri Lanka in the south, who's also in a difficult position. So India's role in this entire area becomes a very important thing. Thank you so much, sir. Till next time, Jai Hind.
Thank you, Aadi. Grateful to you.
Cheers.